The massive alien ships appeared without warning at the edge of Earth's solar system. 500 warships dropped out of hyperspace like dark metal mountains floating in the void. Each vessel was 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that reflected starlight in ways that hurt to look at. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching the displays with growing dread. The alien fleet stretched across space in perfect formation, their weapons already charging with energy that made Earth's most powerful weapons look like toys. Jake had spent 30 years in the Earth Defense Force, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," called Lieutenant Rogers from the communications station. His voice shook as he spoke. On the main screen, an alien face appeared. The creature looked like a cross between a lizard and a shark, with gleaming teeth and cold black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was translated into perfect English by some advanced technology. "I am Fleet Commander Krex Thule of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been chosen for conquest. You have 24 hours to surrender completely. Resist, and every living thing on your planet will be destroyed." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Jake looked around, at his officers. Captain Lisa Barnes, commander of their most powerful warship, the UES Defender, stood with her jaw clenched. Colonel Pete Harris, who ran planetary defenses, was already pulling up tactical displays. "How many ships do we have?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would not be good. 43 combat vessels, sir," Lisa replied. "The Defender is our largest, but compared to those things." She gestured at the alien fleet on the screen. Far away from Earth, on a space station orbiting the star Proxima Centauri, other aliens watched the events unfold. The Galactic Council had been observing Earth for decades, waiting to see what would happen when a real threat appeared. Ambassador Vel Karn of the Altarian Republic adjusted his feathered wings and spoke to his fellow council members. "The humans will surrender within hours. They always do when they see the Zephyrian fleet." Council leader Zix Mora, whose crystalline body sparkled under the station's lights, nodded agreement. "The Zephyrians have conquered 47 worlds. None have resisted for more than a day after seeing that fleet." "Should we intervene?" asked another council member. "Why?" Velkarn laughed, a sound like birds chirping. "The humans are too primitive, too violent. They fight each other constantly. They would never fit in our civilized galaxy." Back on Luna Base, Jake was making the hardest decision of his life. Every military manual said they should surrender. The aliens had overwhelming force. Resistance would mean certain death for billions of people. But something deep inside him rebelled against the idea. Humans had never been good at giving up, even when they should. "Send a message to all Earth forces," Jake ordered. "Full mobilization, every ship, every weapon, every person who can hold a gun." "Sir," Colonel Harris stepped forward. "With respect, it's suicide. They'll wipe us out in hours." "Maybe," Jake said, watching the alien fleet on the screens. "But I'd rather die fighting than live on our knees." The next few hours were chaos. Around Earth, small defense stations powered up weapons that seemed pathetic compared to the alien technology. The 43 human warships moved into formation, looking like minnows preparing to fight whales. Captain Lisa Barnes stood on the bridge of the Defender, watching her crew prepare for what would probably be their last battle. The ship's weapons officer, Lieutenant Murphy, was running diagnostics on their main guns. "Ma'am, our best missiles would barely scratch their hulls," Murphy reported. "Then we'll have to get creative," Lisa replied. She had an idea forming, something crazy that might just work. On the Galactic Council station, the aliens were placing bets on how long Earth would last. The snake-like silt delegate wagered that humans would surrender before the first shot was fired. The insect-like Kren thought they might last 6 hours. "Humans are emotional creatures," explained Velkarn to a newer council member. "They'll panic when they see the first demonstration of Zephyrian power." Commander Krex Thule was thinking the same thing as his fleet moved closer to Earth. In his experience, primitive species always followed the same pattern. First, they would try to negotiate. Then they would make threats. Finally, they would beg for mercy before surrendering completely. He had never encountered a species that actually fought back effectively. Dr. Rachel Ward, Earth's best scientist specializing in alien technology, was working frantically in her laboratory. The few pieces of alien tech that Earth had found over the years were being studied with new urgency. "There has to be something," she muttered, running scan after scan on a piece of metal that had fallen from space years ago. "Some weakness we can exploit." Her assistant, Dr. Kim Park, looked up from another workstation. "Rachel, look at this. The energy patterns in their transmissions, they're using a very narrow frequency band. So maybe their shields work the same way, if we can find the right frequency." It was a long shot, but it was something. Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison was meeting with Earth's top military commanders via secure video link. Generals and admirals from every nation were gathered, their faces grim but determined. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake said, "we're facing the fight of our lives, maybe the last fight humanity will ever have. But I want you all to remember something. We might be outgunned, but we're not outthought." General Maria Santos from Brazil leaned forward. "What do you mean, Admiral? These aliens have conquered dozens of worlds, but they've never faced humans. They don't know how we think, how we fight, how we adapt. That might be our only advantage." As the meeting continued, plans began to form. Desperate plans, crazy plans, plans that would normally be rejected as too risky or too unconventional. But these were not normal times. The alien fleet continued its slow approach toward Earth. Commander Krexthul was confident that the show of force would be enough. In a few hours, the humans would realize the futility of resistance and surrender. He had no idea that he was about to encounter a species unlike any other in the galaxy. A species that didn't just fight to win, but fought to survive. A species that viewed impossible odds not as a reason to surrender, but as a challenge to overcome. The 24-hour deadline was ticking away, and both sides were preparing for what was to come. The Zephyrians expected an easy victory. The Galactic Council expected to witness a quick massacre. Neither group understood what they were really about to see. Commander Alex Turner had spent most of his career preparing for first contact with alien life. He had studied every protocol, every possible scenario, every diplomatic approach that might work with an unknown species. None of his training had prepared him for this. The Zephyrian fleet hung in space like a collection of dark storms, their weapons clearly visible and already charging with deadly energy. Alex sat in his small diplomatic ship, the UES Messenger, trying to establish communication with beings who had already declared their intention to destroy humanity. "This is Commander Turner of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We request immediate dialogue to discuss peaceful resolution of this conflict." The response came within minutes, but it was not what Alex had hoped for. Instead of words, the aliens answered with action. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the lead Zephyrian ship and struck the unmanned space station Hermes 7. The station, which had served as a research facility for 15 years, simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding clouds of glowing gas and twisted metal. The demonstration was clear. This was the power that awaited Earth if they chose to resist. On the Galactic Council station, the assembled aliens watched the destruction with mild interest. Ambassador Velkarn preened his feathers with satisfaction. "See, the usual pattern begins. First, the primitives try diplomacy. The Zephyrians respond with a show of force. Now the humans will panic and surrender." Council leader Zixmora's crystalline form pulsed with light as she laughed. The Kren delegate wins the first betting pool. The humans lasted exactly 14 hours before attempting negotiations. But Dr. Rachel Ward was not panicking. In her laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, she was studying the energy readings from the attack on Hermes 7. Her team of scientists worked around the clock, analyzing every piece of data they could gather. "The energy beam was incredibly powerful," reported Dr. Kim Park. "But look at this. It took them almost 30 seconds to charge between shots." Rachel studied the readings. 30 seconds is a lifetime in combat. And look at this frequency analysis. Their weapons all operate on very specific energy bands. She turned to her computer and began running calculations. If she was right, there might be a way to exploit this weakness. Captain Steve Clark commanded the research vessel UES Explorer, one of Earth's fastest and most advanced ships. While not heavily armed, the Explorer was equipped with the best sensors humanity had ever built. Steve had been ordered to observe the alien fleet from a safe distance and report everything he could learn. What he discovered was disturbing. "Admiral Morrison," Steve reported over secure communication. "I've been watching their fleet formations. Sir, they're not arranged for actual combat." "What do you mean?" Admiral Morrison's voice crackled through the transmission. "Their ships are in parade formation, sir. Perfect lines, equal spacing. It looks impressive, but it's tactically useless. Any real military force would spread out, cover each other's weaknesses, prepare for multiple attack vectors. These aliens are arranged for intimidation, not fighting." This information reached Earth's military commanders within minutes, and it changed everything. General Maria Santos was the first to understand the implications. "They've never faced real resistance," she said during an emergency strategy meeting. "Look at their historical records that we intercepted. 47 worlds conquered, and every single one surrendered after the first demonstration of force." Admiral Morrison nodded grimly. "So they've forgotten how to actually fight a war. They're used to surrender, not battle." "But sir," Colonel Pete Harris interjected, "their technology is still centuries ahead of ours. Even if they're poor tacticians, they can still destroy us with brute force." "Maybe," Morrison replied. "But brute force only works if you can hit your target." The Admiral was beginning to form a plan. A desperate, insane plan that went against every principle of conventional warfare. But conventional warfare was not going to save Earth. Commander Alex Turner made one last attempt at diplomacy, broadcasting directly to the Zephyrian flagship. "Commander Krexthul, surely there is some way we can resolve this peacefully. What does your empire want from Earth? Perhaps we can reach an agreement." The alien commander's response was broadcast on all frequencies, meant for every human to hear. "Your species is violent and chaotic. You fight among yourselves constantly. You have no place in a civilized galaxy. Surrender now, and some of you will be allowed to live as servants. Continue to resist and you will all die." The transmission ended, but it had an effect opposite to what Krexthul intended. Instead of terrifying humanity into submission, it filled them with rage. Humans might fight among themselves, but they did not take kindly to aliens telling them they were unworthy of existence. Dr. Rachel Ward finally had a breakthrough. After 18 hours of non-stop analysis, she had found something important. "I've got it," she shouted to her team. "Their shields operate on rotating frequencies, but there's a pattern. If we can sync our weapons to match their rotation cycle, we might be able to punch through." She immediately contacted Admiral Morrison with her findings. It was not much, but it was something, a weakness in technology that had seemed unbeatable. On the Galactic Council station, the mood was beginning to change. The Silt delegate had lost his bet that humans would surrender immediately. The insect-like Kren were growing nervous as their 6-hour estimate passed without human capitulation. "Perhaps we underestimated them," suggested a new voice. Ambassador Trilnock of the Hegemony was older than most council members and had seen many species rise and fall. "I have watched the Zephyrian conquest before. Usually, the target species begins broadcasting surrender terms by now." Velkarn dismissed this concern with a wave of his wing. "The humans are simply more stubborn than most. They will break soon enough." But privately, some council members were beginning to wonder if they were witnessing something unprecedented. The 24-hour deadline was rapidly approaching. Commander Krexthul had expected to receive surrender terms hours ago. Instead, his sensors showed increased activity throughout the human solar system. Ships were moving, weapons were powering up, and there were energy signatures that suggested the primitives were actually preparing to fight. This was unexpected. Captain Lisa Barnes stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching her crew make final preparations. The ship's weapons had been modified based on Dr. Ward's research. Instead of conventional missiles, they now carried experimental warheads designed to match Zephyrian shield frequencies. "Ma'am," reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Murphy. "All modifications complete. We've loaded the new ammunition, but we only have enough for maybe 10 shots." "Then we'd better make them count," Lisa replied. She looked out at the stars, knowing that this might be the last time she ever saw them. But she was not afraid. She was angry. The final hours ticked away. Across Earth, millions of people watched the sky, knowing that death was coming but refusing to give up hope. Children were evacuated to shelters. Soldiers took their positions. Scientists worked frantically on last-minute weapons and defenses, and, in space, 43 human warships moved to meet 500 alien vessels in what everyone expected to be the shortest war in galactic history. Admiral Morrison broadcast one final message to all Earth forces. "Today we face an enemy that thinks we're weak, that thinks we're primitive, that thinks we'll roll over and die without a fight. Let's show them how wrong they are." The deadline expired. The battle was about to begin. Commander Krexthul gave the order to attack with complete confidence. In his 300 years of military service, no species had ever continued to resist after seeing the true power of the Zephyrian Empire. The humans would break quickly, and this would be over within the hour. He was about to learn that humans were unlike any species he had ever encountered. The first wave of Zephyrian ships moved forward in their perfect formation, energy weapons charging to destroy the pathetic human fleet. But instead of the traditional ship-to-ship combat they expected, something completely different happened. From seemingly empty space around Earth, thousands of small objects suddenly became visible. They were not warships in any recognizable sense. Some were clearly civilian spacecraft hastily fitted with weapons. Others appeared to be nothing more than missiles with engines attached. Still others were so small they barely registered on Zephyrian sensors. Lieutenant Commander Kate Phillips led the first attack wave in her fighter squadron. The small one-man craft were originally designed for asteroid mining, but had been converted into weapons of war. They moved fast, faster than anything the Zephyrians had ever seen in combat. "Alpha Squadron, this is Kate. Remember the plan. Hit fast, hit hard, and don't give them time to target us." Her fighter streaked toward the nearest Zephyrian ship, followed by 50 others. The alien vessel's weapons tracked them, but the targeting systems were designed for large, slow-moving targets. The human fighters were too small, too fast, and too numerous. Kate's fighter slammed into the alien ship's hull and exploded. The blast barely damaged the massive vessel, but it was followed by 49 more impacts in the span of 10 seconds. Each explosion was small, but together they overwhelmed the ship's shields and tore holes in its armor. Commander Krexthul watched in shock as his lead ship began venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. "What are they doing?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Sir, they're destroying themselves to damage us. This is not logical combat behavior." On the Galactic Council station, the assembled aliens watched the battle with growing amazement. The snake-like silt delegates' scales turned pale with shock. "They're using suicide attacks," he hissed. "What kind of species sacrifices its warriors? Like this?" Ambassador Velkarn's feathers ruffled with agitation. "This is not civilized warfare. There are rules, protocols. You do not throw away lives so carelessly." But the humans were just getting started. Captain Dan Brooks commanded the destroyer UES Wolverine, one of Earth's medium-sized warships. Instead of engaging the alien fleet directly, he led his ship in a completely unexpected maneuver. "Take us around behind that asteroid field," he ordered his navigation officer. "Helm, I want silent running. Make us invisible." The Wolverine disappeared from Zephyrian sensors using the asteroids as cover. But Dan was not hiding. He was hunting. When a group of alien ships passed near his position, the Wolverine suddenly appeared among them like a wolf in a flock of sheep. The human ship was smaller and weaker than any of the Zephyrian vessels, but it was also faster and more maneuverable. Dan's ship danced between the alien vessels, firing at point-blank range before they could bring their weapons to bear. The Zephyrians had never faced an enemy that would deliberately enter close combat. Their weapons were designed for long-range engagement, not knife fighting in space. "Target their engines," Dan ordered. "We can't destroy them, but we can cripple them. The Wolverines' modified weapons, based on Dr. Ward's research, punched through Zephyrian shields and tore into vital systems. Within minutes, 3 alien ships were drifting helplessly, their engines destroyed. Major Amy Foster was coordinating Earth's ground-based defenses, but she was not content to simply wait for the aliens to come to her. Instead, she was turning the entire planet into a weapon. "Launch the cargo pods," she ordered from her command center deep beneath Colorado. Hundreds of civilian cargo ships, hastily converted into missiles, launched from Earth's surface. They were not fast or maneuverable, but they carried massive payloads of explosives. The Zephyrians destroyed most of them easily, but some got through, adding to the chaos and confusion of the battle. But the real surprise was yet to come. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Torres, "the mining platforms are in position." Amy smiled grimly. Earth's asteroid mining operations had been converted overnight into the largest artillery pieces in human history. The massive magnetic launchers that normally threw raw materials toward Earth now hurled tungsten projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The first barrage caught the Zephyrian fleet completely off guard. The projectiles were too small and fast for their sensors to track effectively, and when they hit, they struck with the force of nuclear weapons. 2 alien ships simply disappeared, torn apart by impacts they never saw coming. Commander Krex Thule was beginning to panic, an emotion he had not felt in centuries of warfare. His perfect formation was in chaos. Ships were scattered across the battlefield, trying to deal with threats coming from every direction. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 17 ships. The humans are using tactics that are not in any known military doctrine." "What do you mean?" "They're improvising, sir. Every attack is different. We can't predict what they'll do next because they don't seem to know themselves." This was exactly what Admiral Morrison had counted on. From Luna Base, he watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The human fleet was taking heavy casualties, but they were also proving something important. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Begin Phase 2. Across the solar system, the second wave of human forces began to move. But these were not military vessels at all. Civilian ships, hastily armed and armored, began converging on the battle. Cruise liners fitted with missile launchers, cargo haulers carrying nothing but explosives. Even small personal spacecraft jury-rigged with whatever weapons their owners could find. Captain Lisa Barnes led the UES Defender and the remnants of Earth's original fleet in a coordinated attack on the Zephyrian command ship. The aliens expected a direct assault, but Lisa had learned from the earlier battles. "All ships, scatter formation. Attack pattern random. Don't let them predict where we'll be." The human ships broke apart and attacked from dozens of different angles, weaving between enemy vessels in patterns that seemed completely chaotic, but were actually carefully coordinated. The Zephyrians, trained in formal military doctrine, could not adapt quickly enough to counter this approach. On the Galactic Council station, the mood had shifted from amusement to serious concern. Council leader Zix Mora's crystalline form was pulsing with agitated light. "This is not possible," she declared. "The Zephyrians have superior technology, superior numbers, superior everything. How are the humans not only surviving but actually winning?" Ambassador Trilnak of the Hegemony spoke quietly. "Because they are fighting like no species we have ever seen. They do not follow the rules of civilized warfare." "What rules?" demanded Velkarn. "They're using suicide attacks, improvised weapons, civilian vessels. They're turning their entire civilization into a military force." "Exactly," Trilnak replied. "And that is something the Zephyrians have never faced. They are prepared to fight an army, not an entire species." The battle raged for hours, far longer than any previous Zephyrian conquest. Human losses were severe, but they were also inflicting damage on the alien fleet at a rate that shocked everyone watching. More importantly, they were learning. Each wave of human attacks was more effective than the last. The survivors adapted their tactics based on what worked and what didn't. They shared information instantly across the entire fleet, creating a collective intelligence that grew stronger with every passing minute. Commander Krex Thule found himself in the impossible position of losing a battle against an inferior enemy. His fleet had been reduced from 500 ships to less than 400, and the humans showed no signs of giving up. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human commander." Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen, scarred and tired but with eyes that burned with determination. "Commander Krex Thule, this is your chance to surrender. Leave our system now, and we'll let you go. Stay, and we'll destroy every one of your ships." The alien commander stared at the human in disbelief. A primitive species, outnumbered more than 10 to 1, was offering him terms of surrender. It was the most insulting thing that had ever happened to him in his long military career. "You dare," he snarled. "I will burn your world to ash for this insult." Morrison's expression did not change. "Then you'll die trying. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, and the battle resumed with renewed fury. But now everyone knew that something fundamental had changed. The humans were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to win. The wreckage of a Zephyrian heavy cruiser drifted silently through space, its hull cracked open like an egg. Inside the dying ship, Chief Engineer Ron Martinez worked frantically with a team of human technicians, cutting through alien metal with tools that should not have been able to penetrate such advanced materials. "Got it!" Ron shouted as he pulled a glowing crystal from the ship's power core. "This is what we need." The boarding operation had been Commander Beth Johnson's idea. While the Zephyrians were distracted by the swarm attacks, she had led a team of Marines onto the damaged alien vessel. The idea of entering an enemy ship that might explode at any moment was so insane that the aliens never considered someone might try it. "Beth, we need to go," called Sergeant Mike Collins from the airlock. "This thing's going to blow in about 10 minutes. Beth and her team grabbed everything they could carry: alien computers, weapon components, pieces of technology that human science was centuries away from developing. They escaped just as the cruiser's reactor went critical, taking the knowledge they had stolen back to Earth's desperate scientists. Dr. Rachel Ward had not slept in 3 days. Her laboratory looked like a war zone, filled with smoking alien devices and jury-rigged human equipment. But she was making progress that should have taken years, not hours. "The power crystal goes here," she explained to her exhausted team, "and if we reverse the polarity on our missile guidance systems..." The weapon she was building looked like something from a nightmare, part human technology, part alien components, held together with wire and determination. It should not have worked. By every law of physics and engineering, it was impossible. But when they tested it, the energy beam that emerged was twice as powerful as anything Earth had ever created. "How?" asked Dr. Kim Park, staring at the readings in disbelief. "I have no idea," Rachel admitted, "but it works. Get this design to every ship in the fleet, now." Dr. Alan Pierce was having similar success in his quantum research laboratory. The alien technology operated on principles that human science barely understood. But Alan was not trying to understand it. He was trying to use it. "Don't think about why it works," he told his team. "Just make it work." They were combining human creativity with alien technology in ways that violated every safety protocol ever written. Weapons that used quantum effects to punch holes in spacetime. Shields that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Communication systems that worked faster than light by ignoring the speed limit entirely. It was dangerous, unstable, and completely insane. It was also devastatingly effective. On the Galactic Council station, the representatives were no longer placing bets on how quickly humanity would fall. Instead, they were holding emergency sessions about what they were witnessing. "The humans are adapting Zephyrian technology in real time," reported Ambassador Kilnath of the Vorthon Collective. "That should be impossible. It takes decades of study to understand even basic alien technology." Council leader Zix Mora's crystalline form pulsed with worried light. "They are not trying to understand it. They are simply using it. That approach should not work, but it does work," observed Ambassador Trilnak quietly. Perhaps our approach of careful study and gradual implementation is not the only way. In space, the battle had evolved into something that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. Captain Steve Clark, now commanding an upgraded version of the UES Explorer, led a squadron of hybrid human-alien vessels against the Zephyrian fleet. His ship looked nothing like it had at the start of the battle. Alien weapons had been welded onto the hull. The engines had been replaced with captured Zephyrian drive systems. The shields were a mixture of human and alien technology that should have been completely incompatible. But it worked, and it worked well. "Target their formation leaders," Steve ordered his weapons officer. "Take out the command ships and the rest will scatter." The explorers' new weapons fired beams of energy that punched through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. The aliens had designed their defenses to stop their own weapons, but the humans were using hybrid technology that operated on completely different principles. Commander Krex Thule watched another of his ships explode and tried to understand what was happening. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been helpless against Zephyrian technology. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his science officer. "Sir, they are using our own technology against us. But they are modifying it in ways that should not be possible. They are combining systems that are not meant to work together. And somehow, they are making it work anyway." Admiral Morrison was implementing what he had started calling strategy chaos, a battle plan that changed every few minutes based on whatever seemed to be working at the time. It went against every principle of military planning, but it was driving the aliens insane. "All units, switch to Formation Delta," he broadcast to the human fleet. "No, wait. Belay that. Formation Theta. Actually, forget formations entirely. Everyone pick a target and attack it however you think best." The result was a battle that looked completely random, but was actually working perfectly. The Zephyrians could not predict what the humans would do next because the humans were not following any predictable pattern. Captain Lisa Barnes was proving this point perfectly. The UES Defender had been upgraded with so much alien technology that it barely resembled a human ship anymore. Lisa was using it to execute maneuvers that violated the laws of physics as everyone understood them. "Take us into that gravity well," she ordered her helmsman. "Ma'am, that's a black hole. We'll be crushed. Not with these new shields we won't, trust me." The Defender disappeared into the gravity well and emerged on the other side of the Zephyrian formation, using the black hole's gravity to accelerate to impossible speeds. The ship slammed into the alien command vessel like a bullet fired from the hand of God. The impact destroyed both ships, but Lisa and her crew escaped in the final seconds, having dealt a crippling blow to the enemy fleet's command structure. Major Amy Foster was coordinating the defense of Earth itself, but she was not content to simply defend. She had turned the planet's entire industrial capacity into a weapons factory, producing new ships and weapons at a rate that amazed even her. "How many vessels can we launch today?" she asked her production chief. 57, ma'am. They're mostly converted civilian ships, but they're armed with the new hybrid weapons." "Good. Send them to the battle immediately. Don't wait for testing or training. We'll figure out how to use them once they get there." This approach should have been a disaster. Untested weapons, untrained crews, ships held together with spare parts and hope. But somehow it was working. The Galactic Council was now in full emergency session. What they were witnessing was changing their understanding of warfare itself. "The humans are not following any known military doctrine," reported the Silt delegate, his scales pale with shock. "They are improvising everything." "That should make them weak," insisted Velkarn. "Discipline and training are the foundations of military strength." "Tell that to the Zephyrians," replied Trilnak dryly. "Their disciplined, trained fleet is losing to human chaos." The battle had now lasted 8 hours, longer than any Zephyrian conquest in recorded history. The alien fleet had been reduced to fewer than 300 ships, while human forces seemed to be growing stronger every hour. New ships arrived constantly from Earth, each one more advanced than the last as human engineers incorporated lessons learned from the ongoing battle. Weapons were upgraded in real time. Tactics evolved minute by minute. The entire human war effort was becoming a living, learning organism that adapted faster than the aliens could counter. Commander Krex Thule was beginning to realize that he might actually lose this battle. The thought was so alien to him that he could barely process it. The Zephyrian Empire had never lost a conquest. Never. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are massing for another attack. This formation is... I don't understand what they're trying to do." Neither did Admiral Morrison, but that was the point. He was about to launch an attack using every remaining human vessel in a coordinated assault that followed no known tactical doctrine. "All ships," he broadcast. "Remember what we're fighting for. Our families, our freedom, our right to exist in this galaxy. Show these aliens what humanity is capable of." The final phase of the battle was about to begin, and everyone knew that whatever happened next would determine the fate of Earth and possibly change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. What had started as an expected massacre had become something that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. The Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 47 worlds, was losing a war against a species they had dismissed as primitive. Colonel Sam Wright stood in the command center of Earth's newest orbital shipyard, watching as the final components of humanity's most ambitious project came together. In the 12 hours since the battle began, human industry had accomplished something that should have taken years. "The conversion is complete," reported engineer Janet Miller. "All civilian infrastructure has been retooled for military production. We're building ships faster than we're losing them." Sam nodded, watching through the viewport as dozens of new vessels launched from Earth's surface. Cruise ships that had been turned into carriers for fighter squadrons. Cargo haulers now loaded with experimental weapons. Even luxury yachts had been fitted with alien technology salvaged from the battlefield. "How many ships are we launching per hour now?" he asked. 43, sir, and each one is more advanced than the last." This was something the Zephyrians had never encountered. Most species they conquered had limited military forces that, once destroyed, could not be replaced. But humans were turning their entire civilization into a war machine, with a speed that defied all logic. Commander Jeff Stone led the latest wave of converted civilian vessels toward the alien fleet. His ship had been a passenger liner just yesterday. Now it bristled with weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "Merchant Squadron Alpha, this is Jeff. Remember, we're not military, so we don't have to follow military tactics. If you see a chance to do something crazy, take it." His squadron spread out in formation that looked random, but was actually carefully coordinated chaos. They approached the Zephyrian fleet from an angle that no proper warship would use, flying through an asteroid field that military doctrine said was too dangerous for large vessels. The alien sensors had trouble tracking them through the rocks and debris. When the converted civilian ships emerged from the asteroid field, they were already among the enemy formation, firing at point-blank range before the Zephyrians could react. Dr. Nina Collins had made a breakthrough that changed everything about how humans understood their enemy. Working with captured alien prisoners, she had discovered something crucial about Zephyrian psychology. "They can't adapt," she explained to Admiral Morrison via secure communication. "Their entire military structure is based on following orders from above. Individual commanders have no authority to change tactics on their own." "What does that mean for us?" Morrison asked. "It means every time we do something unexpected, they have to wait for new orders from their high command. But their high command has never faced anything like us, so they don't know what orders to give." This explained why human tactics were so effective. Each time the aliens started to counter one approach, the humans would switch to something completely different. The Zephyrian command structure was too rigid to keep up. On the Galactic Council station, an emergency session was debating something that had never been discussed before: intervention to stop a Zephyrian conquest. "The humans are not just surviving," reported Ambassador Kilnath. "They are winning. The Zephyrian fleet has been reduced to fewer than 200 ships." Council leader Zix Mora's crystalline form pulsed with agitated light. "This changes everything. If the Zephyrians can be defeated, it means the balance of power in our galaxy is about to shift dramatically." Ambassador Velkarn was no longer dismissive of humanity. "We should have intervened earlier. These humans, They don't fight like any species we've ever seen. They fight like the entire species is a single organism, all working toward the same goal. Should we make contact with them? Suggested another council member. There was a long silence as the representatives considered this. First contact with humanity had been delayed for decades because they were considered too primitive and violent. Now they were proving that they might be the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. General Chris Miller, Earth's supreme military commander, was coordinating the global war effort from a bunker beneath the Pentagon. Every factory, every shipyard, every research facility on the planet was working on the war. Humanity had mobilized completely in a way that amazed even their own leaders. Status report, he requested from his aide. Sir, we've lost about 60% of our original military forces, but we've replaced them with more than 300 converted civilian vessels. Our total fleet strength is now larger than when the battle started. Chris studied the tactical displays. The alien fleet was trapped in Earth's solar system, surrounded by human forces that grew stronger every hour. The Zephyrians had come expecting a quick victory, but now they were fighting for survival. Send a message to all units, Chris ordered. Begin the final phase. Captain Steve Clark was now commanding what remained of the original Earth Defense Force. His ship, the Explorer, had been rebuilt so many times during the battle that it was more alien technology than human, but it was also more powerful than anything Earth had ever created. All remaining Defense Force vessels, this is Steve. Form up for the final assault. We're going to end this. The survivors of humanity's original fleet moved toward the Zephyrian command ship. They had started this battle as 43 vessels facing 500. Now only 7 of the original ships remained, but they were escorted by hundreds of converted civilian vessels and armed with weapons that made their starting equipment look like toys. Commander Krex Thule watched the human fleet approaching and knew that his 300 years of military service were about to end in defeat. The thought was so impossible that he could barely accept it. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving another transmission from the human commander. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. Behind him, the human command center buzzed with activity as Earth's military coordinated the final assault. Commander Krex Thule, this is your last chance. Surrender now, and your surviving ships will be allowed to leave our system. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every one of you. Krex Thule stared at the human commander. A primitive species was offering him terms of surrender. The shame of it was unbearable, but the alternative was the complete destruction of his fleet. You cannot be serious, Krex Thule managed to say. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not surrender to primitives. Morrison's expression hardened. Then you'll die as the first Zephyrian fleet to be completely destroyed. Your choice. The transmission ended, and Krex Thule was left staring at his tactical display. His once mighty fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. The humans had not just matched Zephyrian technology, they had surpassed it. On the Galactic Council station, the assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as the final phase of the battle began. What they were witnessing would be talked about for generations. The humans are not just winning, observed Ambassador Trilnak quietly. They are demonstrating a new form of warfare, one that adapts and evolves faster than any defense can counter it. Velkarn's feathers were ruffled with agitation. We must make contact with them immediately. A species capable of this. They could conquer the entire galaxy if they chose to. Or, suggested Zix Mora, they could defend it against threats we never imagined possible. The human fleet began its final assault, and everyone watching knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. The age of easy Zephyrian conquest was over, and the age of humanity had begun. The final battle for Earth began with something that no one in galactic history had ever seen. A coordinated attack by an entire species acting as one organism. Every ship, from mighty converted battleships to tiny fighter craft, moved toward the remaining Zephyrian fleet in perfect chaos. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching displays that showed hundreds of human vessels converging on the alien formation. There was no traditional battle plan because there didn't need to be one. After hours of combat, every human commander knew exactly what to do. All units, this is Morrison. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them all. We're trying to make them surrender. Big difference, the distinction was important. Humans had learned that the Zephyrians were warriors who would fight to the death if cornered, but they were also practical beings who would surrender if faced with certain defeat. Captain Lisa Barnes had survived the destruction of the UES Defender, and now commanded a hastily converted cruise ship called the New Hope. The vessel looked nothing like a military ship, but it was armed with weapons that combined the best of human and alien technology. "Target their engines and weapons," she ordered her mixed crew of military personnel and civilian volunteers. "Cripple them. Don't destroy them." The New Hope danced through the alien formation like a shark among minnows, its hybrid weapons punching through Zephyrian shields with ease. But instead of going for killing blows, Lisa's crew aimed for systems that would disable enemy ships without destroying them entirely. Commander Jeff Stone led his squadron of converted civilian vessels in a maneuver that would have been impossible with traditional military ships. They broke formation completely and attacked from dozens of different angles at once, making it impossible for the aliens to coordinate their defense. "Remember," Jeff broadcast to his pilots, "we used to be taxi drivers and tour guides and cargo haulers. We know how to navigate in crowded space. Use that experience." His squadron weaved through the Zephyrian fleet like they were navigating busy commercial space lanes, avoiding enemy fire through sheer familiarity with close quarters flying. Their attacks were precise and devastating, targeting specific systems, with the skill of people who had spent years working on similar technology. Dr. Rachel Ward's hybrid weapons were proving even more effective in the final assault. The energy beams that shouldn't have been possible were cutting through Zephyrian defenses like they were made of paper. More importantly, they could be precisely controlled to disable rather than destroy. Captain Steve Clark commanded the last remnant of Earth's original defense fleet in the spearhead of the attack. The UES Explorer had been rebuilt so many times that it was now essentially an alien ship operated by human crew, but it retained the aggressive tactics that no other species would have attempted. "Take us right down their throats," Steve ordered, his helmsman. Ramming speed. The Explorer accelerated directly toward the Zephyrian command ship, weapons firing continuously. At the last moment, it veered aside, its guns raking the length of the alien vessel. The maneuver was so insane that the Zephyrian weapons couldn't track it. Commander Krexthul watched his command ship's systems failing one by one under the human assault. His perfect fleet formation had collapsed into chaos as human ships attacked, from every direction using tactics that made no sense. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost main engines, half our weapons, and our communications array. Hull breaches on 12 decks. Can we fight?" "Sir, we can barely maneuver." All around him, other Zephyrian ships were reporting similar damage. The humans weren't trying to destroy his fleet, they were systematically crippling it. Ship after ship went dead in space, their crews alive but their vessels helpless. On the Galactic Council station, the assembled representatives watched the end of an era. The Zephyrian Empire's reputation for invincibility was dying along with their trapped fleet. "Incredible," whispered Ambassador Kilnath. "The humans are showing mercy even while winning decisively. They could destroy the entire Zephyrian fleet, but they're choosing to spare lives." Council Leader Zixmora's crystalline form pulsed with confused light. "This is not how warfare is supposed to work. The Zephyrians should be fighting to the death rather than allowing themselves to be captured." "But they're not being captured," observed Ambassador Trilnak. "They're being defeated so completely that resistance becomes pointless. The humans have removed their ability to fight without removing their ability to survive." The final moments came faster than anyone expected. Commander Krexthul stared at his tactical display as the last of his functional ships was disabled by human forces. His fleet of 500 vessels had been reduced to drifting hulks, their crews alive but their ships powerless. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on his screen one final time. "Commander Krexthul, your fleet is defeated. Will you surrender? Or do we need to start destroying ships?" For a moment, Krexthul considered ordering his ships to self-destruct rather than surrender. But he looked around his command bridge at his crew, good soldiers who deserved to live, and made the hardest decision of his long military career. I surrender, he said, the words feeling like poison in his mouth. The Zephyrian fleet yields to Earth. The transmission ended, and across the solar system, human forces ceased fire. For the first time in galactic history, a Zephyrian conquest had not only failed but resulted in complete surrender. The aftermath was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of enslaving or executing their prisoners, the humans began rescue operations to help damaged Zephyrian ships. Medical teams from Earth worked alongside alien crews to treat wounded soldiers from both sides. Dr. Nina Collins found herself treating injured Zephyrian warriors who looked at her with a mixture of fear and confusion. They had never encountered enemies who showed kindness to defeated foes. "Why?" asked a wounded alien soldier as Nina bandaged his wounds. "Why help us after we tried to destroy you?" Nina paused in her work. "Because you're no longer our enemies. You're just people who need help." The concept was so alien to Zephyrian, thinking that many of their soldiers struggled to understand it. Within hours, Earth received its first formal diplomatic contact from the Galactic Council. A sleek alien ship appeared at the edge of the solar system, broadcasting messages of greeting and requests for dialogue. Admiral Morrison, now commanding not just Earth's forces but also the surrendered Zephyrian fleet, received the alien ambassadors personally. The meeting took place aboard the captured Zephyrian flagship, a symbolic choice that was not lost on anyone. Ambassador Velkarn, his feathers carefully groomed for the historic occasion, spoke for the council. "Admiral Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I extend greetings to humanity and an invitation to join our civilized galaxy." Morrison listened politely, but his response was not what the alien diplomat expected. "With respect, Ambassador, we're not sure we want to join a galaxy that considered us too primitive to contact until we proved we could fight." The directness of the reply caught Velkarn off guard. The situation has changed dramatically." "Yes, it has," Morrison agreed. "We've learned that we can defend ourselves. We've also learned that the galaxy is full of species who will attack peaceful worlds without provocation. That changes how we view everything. The negotiations that followed would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Humanity did eventually join the Galactic Council, but as equals rather than junior members. The Zephyrian Empire, humbled by their defeat, became unlikely allies as they learned human concepts of mercy and adaptation. Commander Krexthul, his military career over, chose to remain on Earth as a cultural exchange officer. He spent his remaining years studying human military doctrine and writing reports that would revolutionize how the galaxy thought about warfare. "They do not fight to conquer," he wrote in his most famous analysis. "They fight to survive. And they are very, very good at surviving." The captured Zephyrian ships were eventually returned to their empire, along with their crews and a message from Earth's leadership. The message was simple, but profound. Next time, try diplomacy first. Years later, when other species asked how humanity had achieved the impossible, Admiral Morrison would give a simple answer: "We didn't know it was impossible, so we did it anyway." The battle for Earth had lasted less than 24 hours, but it changed the galaxy forever. Humanity had earned their place among the stars not through peaceful contact or gradual integration, but by proving that they were too dangerous to ignore and too valuable to alienate. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of humanity had begun. And in the vast darkness of space, other aggressive species that might have considered Earth an easy target quietly revised their expansion plans. The humans had sent a clear message to the entire galaxy: we are not prey, we are predators, and we are very good at what we do.